I'm Winston Nugent, and this is Legislative Intent. My guest today is, of course, Senator Judi Buckley. Senator, welcome.
Thank you very much.
It is my understanding, Senator, that on Tuesday, October the 8th, in the Fitz E. Lowett's conference room at approximately 9 a.m., the Committee on Educational Workforce, of course, chaired by Senator Donald Cole, will be having a hearing. And that hearing will be your bill, which is bill number 30136. And of course, it's a bill to amend the Virgin Islands Code as it relates to, of course, corporal punishment of pupils within our educational institution.
Yes.
Senator, just give me a brief reality of that bill.
Well, this is a bill that, as you stated, attempts to ban corporal punishment in our public schools. I want to make that clear. We're only dealing with public schools, and this does not relate to what goes on in homes, only our schools. And it's a bill that it's exactly what it says. It's an attempt to actually prevent anyone in schools from being able to exercise corporal punishment with the students.
Okay. Can you, of course, briefly define what do you mean by corporal punishment?
Any kind of hitting, spanking, beating, whatever word you want to use, paddling, anything that is using physical force as punishment against students.
And by whom?
Anyone who works at the schools.
Anyone
who works at the schools.
And I want to emphasize, it's banning what we call corporal punishment in our public school only.
Yes, yes.
Okay, based on some of your research, I thought we had a law already in existence banning corporal punishment in schools.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, if you look in the VI code, it currently states that when your child is in school, anybody who works at that school can act as your child's parent. And if corporal punishment needs to be used, it can be used.
Okay, based upon your research, and I quite know you have come across a statement that has been made that in the old time days, we usually get corporal punishment, and it didn't mean anything about abusing or you're going to get locked up by the law.
Right.
What confrontation you have, and how did you balance that reality?
Well, and I have heard that a lot. I've had many, many people, you know, my age, people younger, people older, say, I was spanked in school, and so were all of my classmates, and we turned out fine. I want to point some things out to you. The Department of Education, years and years ago, created their own policy that said that if corporal punishment is used in schools, no matter who does it, the principal, the teacher, whoever does it, must have witnesses. It has to be documented. They must notify the parents. There's certain structure in place, if you will, if corporal punishment is going to be used.
Gotcha.
The department will admit they abandoned their own policy years and years ago, and so there's no structure to it, if you will. So when when teachers or anyone else is hitting a child for any reason, they don't have to document it, they don't have to notify the parents, and so there's no data, there are no statistics available to know exactly how often it's occurring.
Right.
Now, what I've learned since doing all the research on this bill, what I've learned is because there's no solid policies in place, each teacher has been able to decide for themselves how they're going to administer it. And so what I've learned, and let me make it very clear, I understand that most teachers do not, but there are a few who do, and it's an issue, which is why we're bringing this up. So no longer are the days when you stick out your hand and you get hit with a ruler, or you go to the principal and you get a few paddles. If that's what we were doing, we wouldn't be having this discussion, but that's not in fact what we're doing. And so there have been too many cases over the years where I believe it has actually crossed over into the line of abuse, and that is what I'm attempting to ban.
Okay, your research, have it dealt within the whole concept of what effect corporal punishment do have on children in their psychological development process?
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of research out there, and it's going to come out on Tuesday as part of our testimony. There's a lot of research around the country and even local research that talks about exactly the effect that corporal punishment has on students. There's a lot of research that shows what it has on children, period, whether it's in the home or in school, but particularly in school, where it's a place that students need to feel safe and feel protected. There's a lot of, while hitting a child may stop an immediate action that they're intending to stop, There's a lot of long-term negative effects
I
that
see.
leaves on a child. And what I've learned through my research locally is that most instances of corporal punishment where it is occurring, it's in the elementary schools, and it's occurring in the students with disabilities classes. And
I
those
see.
are, if you think about it, those are the
Right.
two most vulnerable
Critical,
groups
vulnerable,
of students.
child
They're the-
development process.
They're the most defenseless.
I see. I
Yes.
see. Now, it is my understanding that you will be having some expert witness coming to the Virgin Islands to testify. Can you elaborate on that, please?
I can. I'm actually happy to talk about this. I'm very, very proud of the work that my office has done in locating this testifier. There's a woman who is the senior counsel, legal counsel for the ACLU in the
ACLU.
Yes, the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union,
Gotcha.
that does a lot of civil rights work around the country. And they are doing a lot of work nationally to ban corporal punishment in the 19 states where it is still allowed. And they actually have been the driving force behind the states that currently have it banned, including some territories. And my staff, one of my staff, my researcher actually, Chris Mitchell, found her online just from some articles that she had written over the years, some different blogs and interviews that she had done. And when we found out just how powerful and compelling her research was, of course, we immediately wanted to know if she'd be able to come here and assist. And so I'm really proud to say that she's flying in, and on the ACLU's dime, it's not costing us any money at all, and she's going to be providing testimony on Tuesday.
Okay, I want you to emphasize that factor. She will be coming to the Virgin Islands, and her accommodation will be taken up, which is, of course, fees and so forth,
Yes.
by
the ACLU.
And-
She put it, when I actually first asked her to come down,
Yes.
she said, well, Senator, you have to understand that the work I do is advocacy on a national level. There's other
Right.
folks that do state level.
Right.
And she said, however, I have become the corporal punishment expert, and so I would be the logical one. So let me put in the request and see if I'll be granted it. And she did, and they allowed her to come.
And
So-
this is no cost
no cost
to the legislature.
No cost to my office, no cost to, she actually is going to make a little vacation out of it and stay a couple of extra days and on her own dime.
That's
So it'll be no cost to us
very
at
good.
all.
Very good. Very
yes.
good. Now, the bill. Have you spoken to any of your colleagues, and what was their response in terms of supporting you on this bill so far?
I actually have not talked to all of them. The ones I have indicated that they will more than likely support the bill. There are some that have said, well, I want to hear the testimony. I'll tell you this, Mr. Nugent, most people I talk to, whether it's in this legislature or outside on the streets, most of them don't even know that we still have a law that allows it. The first reaction I get from people is, didn't we ban that years ago?
Precisely.
The media said it to me. You know, when they
Right.
started doing interviews, they're like, we still do that here?
Right.
So it's just, it's a topic no one wants to talk about, but it's a very real reality in a lot of our schools. Some schools, I know, for example, Claudio Marco, I met with the principal there, Mr. Kent Moorhead, recently, and he said that when he first heard that this bill was coming, he was very much against it, just because it's one of those things that we've just always done, and he understands what a game changer it is, and wasn't in support of it. But then after having some time to think about it and doing research of his own, he decided that as of this school year, he has banned corporal punishment in Claudio Marco, because he strongly suspects that this bill will actually pass. I want to tell you the Department of Education is fully behind this. The Board of Education is fully behind this. We have several local psychologists, a couple of local psychologists who are coming, who are very much behind this bill. My understanding is we have one group that is not going to support the bill, and that is the local AFT, which is really
Right.
interesting because nationally they've teamed up with the ACLU, and they are very much in support of it nationally.
I see.
So that's going to be a very interesting discussion.
Did anyone from Human Services were invited to testify in this bill in terms of?
I don't. Honestly, my staff is the one who invited the testifiers. I don't
I
believe
see.
we have anybody from Human Services coming.
Well, it is my understanding that they will be here, though. So,
Well, they may, and I'll tell you, one of the psychologists who's coming does contract work with Human Services.
I
So
see.
she may be the designated representative for them,
I see.
Yeah.
Now, why did
to include YRC,
Yeah.
by the way.
I realize that it is the educational committee, but is it the true jurisdiction for this bill, or should this bill have gone into, say, for instance, the committee on legal realities, which is, of course, the Senator Sanet's committee?
Rules?
Is this more legal or this more educational?
No, it's education because it's dealing with what goes on in our schools.
But it's not a legal reality, is it? In terms of the fact that there's no law. This is not establishing a law, is it? In terms of
Yes.
prosecutorial law and so forth.
Well, there are prosecutions.
Punishment?
Yeah,
Okay,
there
right.
are.
Okay,
You know, and it would be up to the Department of Education to report those
I got you.
if there are violations. And currently, understand, the law it's really unclear, which is a whole other creates a whole other set of issues. It's really unclear with where the line is drawn. Like, for example, in other jurisdictions where it is still allowed. It's still allowed in 19 states. There are very clear guidelines with how it has to be administered, how often. For example, no more than 3 paddles or no more than 5 paddles. It's very clear, and it's not
Understandable,
here.
right.
So there's a real gray line, a gray area with what constitutes corporal punishment versus abuse. And we actually have had a couple of cases make the news recently where a teacher crossed the line with a student and hit her multiple times with a stick, a big stick that,
Yes.
had
Yes.
been taped
yes.
up and whatnot, and hit the child several times in her arms and shoulders, and it left marks, and it was reported, and she was in fact arrested. Yeah, so it's a having our existing law in place that is so gray, it's a liability for the schools and the teachers.
Okay, Senator. I want to make sure I emphasize this factor that this bill, it will amend 17 Virgin Islands Code, Chapter 11, Section 130 of the Virgin Islands Code, which is in fact educational process.
Yes.
Okay, I got you on that. Well, Senator Judi Buckley,
Yes.
as I said before, your hearing will be on Tuesday, October the 8th, 9 a.m. in the Fitz E. Lowitz Conference Room, which is Frederiksted, under the jurisdiction of the Committee on Education and Workforce, which is chaired by Senator Donald Cole. I want to thank you very much, Senator,
welcome.
to come to, of course, legislative intent. I want to say I'm Winston Nugent for Legit Television. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.